Welcome to another episode of the Benchwarmers. I'm Matt, here with my co-host Ryan.
Hey everyone, welcome to the 19th episode. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Benchwarmer06. Subscribe to our podcast on Google Play Music, Apple Podcast, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and YouTube.
On today's episode, we will discuss the conference finals of the NBA and review what occurred, and then we'll try to give a preview and make predictions on the NBA finals.
The Benchwarmers. Alright, so let's get right into it, and the most recent win with the Golden State Warriors in 7 games beating the Houston Rockets. I had said last week in our podcast, and me and Matt have talked about this, that, I thought Houston was going to win this series. I thought they were the better team. And then CP3 goes and gets hurt, and then they end up losing. It was a great series. It was what we expected it to be. This was, as we said, this is going to be the winner of the NBA Finals. CP3 played phenomenal every game until he got hurt. And the worst part of it was he got hurt in the last minute of that Game 5. And it was just, you knew it was over at that point once he got hurt. There was really no way. I had some hope for them, and they looked good in yesterday's game. If you watched any of that first half, they were looking good and killing it. And then I guess they fell apart in the second half. I saw a comment from Durant saying that he saw that they were going to get tired and that Harden couldn't do it the entire time. He was eventually going to just fade out, and they just waited for their moment, which is what happened. And then they just went on from there, and Durant just showed them up and then some. What'd you think of this series?
I agree with you. This series was exciting to watch. It went back and forth, but clearly the crucial moment was when CP3 got hurt. CP3 is, he is definitely one of the best players, on the Rockets. That's clear. But he's definitely one of the top 20 players in the league. So if a guy like that goes down, especially in a playoff series, it's definitely going to shift the momentum. And he is the heart and soul of that team. I know Harden's the best player and he's the MVP, but Chris Paul, his leadership, you can't forget about that. And the fact that he got hurt, like Ryan said, in the last minute of Game 5, I think most people could figure it out that series was over at that point, because the Rockets just don't have enough to just cancel out Golden State's powerful offense, unless, they just kept shooting threes and hit them. But the opposite happened in Game 7. You missed 27 in a row. My God. At what point do you just stop shooting because nothing was falling? If you miss 27 in a row, you're not going to win a game. And not against Golden State. Because that's basically when Golden State went on their run. Because if you're going to miss shots and get those long rebounds in that Golden State run, they're going to kill you, because they're not going to miss 27 in a row. Not with those guys. So, unfortunately, the Rockets, even though they had the 1 seed, they did lose. But I think they put up a good fight. But at the end of the day, without CP3, there's only so much that team could really do against a powerful team like Golden State. So, respect to the Rockets for having a great season. And Ryan, I don't know if you heard, but during the game, Mike D'Antoni told KD that if he had CP, they would have won. And which, I guess technically we don't know. They probably could have. But then after the game, Steve Kerr said if he had Iguodala, they would have won in 5, which I think is pretty hilarious. But I wonder if you had any thoughts on that.
I fully think that Houston would have won that series with CP3. I don't see that even being a question. More or less just because of how well they played and how much better they played than Golden State. And Golden State looked like the Golden State of 2 years ago when they lost to the Cavs after being up 3-1. That's how bad they looked in those games that, they had the lead in games 4 and 5 and ended up blowing it. But Kerr saying that, they would have won with Iguodala, that's a stretch. Now, this is nothing. I'm not taking anything away from Iguodala. Yeah, he was a Sixer and all that. But I'm saying the man is a great defensive player. I think he really is. I think he's one of the most underrated defensive players, especially as a sixth man coming off that team. But I don't think he would have been the deciding factor. That team just played straight garbage in games 4 and 5 and blew it. And I don't think Iguodala was going to be the difference maker there.
Well, I mean, I agree. Obviously, offensively, Iguodala's not going to help you that much. But defensively, I mean, he, like you said, he is a great defender. And I think the problem was they didn't have anyone else to fill that fifth person role. I mean, Nick Young ain't going to help you. Quinn Cook isn't going to help you. Kevon Looney ain't going to help you. I mean, these guys are like borderline NBA players, really. I mean, Nick Young, he's a good shooter, I guess, but at the end of the day, at least Iguodala is, he's a formidable player. He's not an idiot. He plays great defense. He's a good team player. He could facilitate the offense. So, I mean, I think that's kind of where I think missing a guy like that made Golden State, I would say, a bit less powerful than they should have been. Because I think with Iguodala, I'm not saying that they would have won 5 like Steve Kerr said, but I think they would have looked more dominant at least.
No, I mean, that's a fair point. I get what you're saying there. And, I'm not saying they would have been more dominant. I agree. Like I said, I think he's a great defensive player. I agree with you. Not in 5. They blew the game. And Iguodala, if he was able to play, would have been a difference maker. But I don't think it would have been that much of a difference maker because no one was really hitting shots on that team. I don't know if it would have made that big of a switch. Whereas, looking at this game, I'm not looking at Game 6, but Game 7, if CP3 was in that game, it wouldn't have given the ball to Harden and he wouldn't have drained himself because he doesn't have the stamina to play a 48-minute game and keep his team in it, as we just saw, and they ended up losing to Golden State.
So, Ryan, would you call James Harden a choker because of Game 7?
I'm not going to say he's a choker, but listen, he was the greatest player in the regular season. He definitely is MVP, and we'll find out if they give it to him. I guess was it June 25th or whatever after the playoffs are over, and this award thing that they're doing now, banquet ceremony thing. But he didn't perform to a MVP All-Star should have in that second half. That's how I'm gonna say it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he did put up 32 points, so it's not like he did nothing. But it took him 29 shots to hit 32 points. And obviously he was ice cold from 3 like the rest of his team. So do I expect better from a MVP caliber player? Of course I do. But I mean, I understand. I mean, you're playing against, a super team. And they're throwing everything at you, obviously. I mean, you obviously have the best defenders guarding you the whole game. So I understand, but I wish James Harden played a little bit better. But I agree with Ryan that I wouldn't go as far as calling him a choker like he did, what was it, last year or 2 years ago against, was it the Spurs or the Clippers, where he just totally just disappeared. I would say he didn't go that far this year.
It was last year, and I think it was the Spurs. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, that's when I would say he definitely choked or disappeared. I don't know what you want to call it, but this year I would say he was there. He just, I would basically say he just didn't have enough ammunition or help this year. Moving on to the East, where what I just said about James Harden, about a guy who doesn't have help or not have enough ammunition, well, there was another guy who you could say the same for, but unlike James Harden, he came up bigger than anyone else. And we talk about this person every week because he continues to do things that I don't even know what to say anymore. I say this every week. But Cleveland wins Game 7 against Boston in Boston because, well, the King did it again. LeBron James, he just fuels his team to victories in the East. I mean, you might as well just rename the Eastern Conference at this point because LeBron is not going to lose. It doesn't matter who you put on his team. I mean, we joked at last podcast that, instead of JR and, George Hill, you could put me and Ryan on the team. I mean, honestly, you probably could. At this point, he's still going to win the East because no one in the East could stop him. Boston, similar to Houston, went ice cold from 3. Definitely not as bad. They didn't miss 27 in a row, but they kind of went away from what they were supposed to do. I would say. I mean, yeah, obviously Brad Stevens is a great coach, but I thought at the end of the game they should have had the ball in Jason Tatum's hands more, because he had that posterizing dunk on LeBron. Then he hit that three, but then he didn't touch the ball for, I believe, like 5 minutes. I don't know why, because clearly he's their best player on the court. But instead, people like Rozier and Marcus Smart and Marcus Morris shot threes, and they didn't hit. So I don't know why the Celtics went away from Tatum, and I think if they did go to Tatum, I think that it would have been a closer game. I'm not saying that LeBron would have lost, but at least the separation wouldn't have been as high as it was. So, Ryan, what do you think about LeBron once again heading to the NBA Finals for the 8th straight year?
The man's a legend. The man is the greatest player in the NBA currently, and there's no doubting that. This man has not choked, did not choke, and he had less than Harden, and he did something with it. He is just a phenomenal player, and like you said, me and him could have been on his team, and he could have won. So LeBron, give us a call. We're willing to play with you. Don't worry about it. We'll pass you the ball. We'll shoot it for you, whatever you need. But all jokes aside, Rozier only had 4 points in that game. That was it, and they kept going to him. Whereas Tatum, like you said, was just on fire. He had a dunk in LeBron James' face. He got in his face afterwards. He was hyped. The crowd was hyped. You have to go with the man who's performing and producing, and that was Tatum. And they didn't. Like you said, I don't know where the philosophy was, where the thinking was in that, but I think they made a mistake in there, and I think they actually could have come out with the win with Tatum getting the ball more at the end, because it wasn't like they were up by a lot by the end of the game. I mean, he was putting fire back into that team. But, no one was hitting threes in that game. I don't know if they missed as many as 27 total as in a row like Houston did, but they missed a ton of threes. Baines didn't hit any. Rozier didn't hit any. And, Brown had his here and there. But, again, that team was not the team that we saw in those first 3 home games of the playoffs. They were undefeated going into that game, and LeBron James said, I don't lose elimination games. I'm going to go to my 8th straight. And he did just that. And then I saw a picture of him afterwards, and he had ice bags covering his whole entire right leg, his whole left knee. I mean, that man was just beat up horribly. And, he didn't even end up going to the ceremony for winning the East. He was in the locker room probably taking a nap, because that's how I would have felt, tired as hell after doing what he just did. My hat's off to James. And we talked about it last week. If anyone can do it, it's going to be LeBron James. And he did. He did it. And now we're going for a 4-in-a-row matchup with the Golden State Warriors versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. Phrase that. The Golden State Warriors versus LeBron James. That is what this is. That is what we're going to see. But he straight up put on a show in this entire series, but especially in the last 2 games when his life was on the line. And he actually got some help, and it wasn't from the man Tristan Thompson. It was from the bench player, or the starter, that Jeff Green came in and played because of, I drew a blank on his name, because of Kevin Love getting the concussion. And, Jeff Green put up more points in those last 2 games than he had his entire playoffs this time around. So he had somewhat of a help, but it wasn't the help that I was hoping. I thought he would maybe get out of it. But, again, I said it was a phenomenal series. It was a phenomenal Game 7. The series was basically one-sided. Whoever the home team was, it was going to be an annihilation. That's what it was. The home team annihilated the away team every single game until this game. This was a back and forth. There was no fourth quarter lead change until Game 7. I mean, it was just that insane of a series. And I don't know if we've ever seen a series where there's been none until a Game 7, or at all for that matter. I mean, it was just really a whole lopsided series until this final Game 7. And, it was LeBron's determination. This was the first time in an elimination game that he did not get 40 points or a triple-double.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't know why the so-called experts continue to doubt LeBron James. I don't get it. But I feel like they're just doing it for TV ratings or something, because they can't actually believe this, right? Like, we know LeBron's going to the finals. Like, I feel like it doesn't matter who he has on his team. Like I mentioned, I mean, Jeff Green, like Ryan mentioned, he played out of his mind the last couple of games in replacement of Kevin Love. I mean, yeah, even without Kevin Love on his team, basically there's no other All-Star on the court with LeBron James, yet he still wins. Jeff Green, I believe a few years ago, he had a heart condition. He didn't know if he was going to play in the NBA ever again or play basketball again. Yet, somehow, when LeBron needs it, guys step up. And I forgot who said this. I don't know if maybe it was Jeff Green or maybe somebody else, but they said that when you have LeBron on your team, you just feel like you're going to win. When you have the best player on the court, or, I mean, like Ryan mentioned, the best player in the planet right now, you just have this confidence that, hey, he's going to do all the work. I just need to hit the wide open shots. And if I have that confidence, then that's all you need. And that's what Jeff Green did. Hey, LeBron's going to do all the heavy lifting, and if he kicks it out to me for that wide open shot, I'm going to hit it. And he did. So, obviously, not only does LeBron set up his teammates, he clearly gives them the utmost confidence. And that clearly goes a long way. And the last thing I want to note before we move on is, as the playoffs went on, a lot of people said, oh, the Celtics clearly don't need Kyrie anymore. Well, you know what? They could have used Kyrie at the end of the game, because he's the guy who would have took over, and when you need a score, he'll get it for you. So I don't want to hear any more of, trade Kyrie, Terry Rozier will take over, or all this and that. You need Kyrie. Kyrie's the killer. Kyrie's the guy who helped LeBron win his title in Cleveland. He's the guy that, when you need a bucket, Kyrie will get it for you. So, I don't know, Ryan, I don't know if you agree with me or if you think that Kyrie is replaceable for the Celtics.
Well, speaking of Kyrie, which is funny you say what you had said, is if you notice, he was not on the bench for this game. I thought it was very intriguing that he didn't show up for Game 7. He was there for every other game, but wasn't there for their Game 7 against the Cleveland Cavaliers, his ex-team. I thought something was a little off by that. And I don't know if it was something personal that he had to take care of. I never heard anything about it. I don't know if you did. But I definitely disagree with them, because obviously Rozier could not perform in this Game 7 the way they needed him to, and really nobody on the team except for Tatum performed. And this is a rookie coming up and just showing up everybody. He's needed. Hayward is needed. And this team would be in the finals if they had those two. No questions. Listen, LeBron James is a fantastic player, but there's no way that if Kyrie was on that court, that he would not have been able to finish them off in Game 6. I just don't see it. I mean, he's way too good of a player for that to have happened. I mean, I'm not taking anything against LeBron, but he would have needed his entire team to actually do something. And they didn't prove to do anything, really, except for Jeff Green. He really had no help whatsoever this entire time. So, I agree with you. I think, if they had Kyrie, it could have been a different story possibly, but it definitely would have been a more interesting series.
And just to respond to why Kyrie wasn't there, he actually had nasal surgery. He has a deviated septum, so that's why he wasn't at the game.
I still find it. Why would you wait for Game 7? Why don't you wait till after? That's all I'm saying.
That I do not know. Maybe it was an urgent surgery. I don't know. But that is why he wasn't there. That's all I can tell you. Well, moving on to the big one, the NBA Finals. And like Ryan mentioned, for the 4th straight year, we have Cleveland versus Golden State. Or, like Ryan wanted to say, Golden State versus LeBron. Well, Ryan, I'll let you begin. How do you want to start off discussing this? I guess the 4th one. Go ahead.
The 4th one. This is episode 4. Golden State Warriors obviously clearly have the better team coming into this. Me and Matt said from the beginning that the winner of the Rockets versus Warriors will be the NBA champions. I still believe it to a good point. I know LeBron James will not allow a sweep. I know LeBron James will not go out without putting his whole body on the floor until he is basically half dead coming off of that court. With that said, LeBron needs to do a ton of 48-minute games since he is 5-0 coming into this now, playing a straight game. He will need to do that and then some. Plus, he needs Kevin Love to show up. He needs J.R. Smith to show up. He needs Jeff Green to perform. And they need to take Tristan Thompson and put him on the bench because he is terrible. This whole team needs to show up. And they need to play fantastic defense against these guys. And even then, I don't know how much it's going to help. I mean, Houston wasn't playing bad defense, and Durant was still hitting it in people's faces. I mean, Golden State is just way overpowered, way overmatched for these guys. And I don't really see how much LeBron James can do when they got three other people on that team who can do just the same. Now, you can look at it as, the same as Boston did the same thing when they had all their people and they were all making threes in those games. And you can say that this is possibly the same way Golden State could do, and then they could turn around and be terrible in games 3 and 4, and LeBron can come back and do what he did against Boston. And we've seen the Warriors choke. We have. And I'm not saying that they cannot do it because they proved that they almost did it in games 4 and 5 against Houston. And they did do it in games 4 and 5 against Houston. And if it wasn't for CP3 getting hurt, they probably would have lost that series. So, and I don't know how it's going to play out, but if they play the way that they played in games 4 and 5 and blow it, LeBron can do what he has to do and beat this team as long as his guys play defense and just help out by making a shot here and there and rebound the ball. I mean, it's going to be a tough matchup, and it hasn't been easy for LeBron. People have been doubting him this whole time, and I'm not doubting him, but I'm doubting his team, his teammates. Like I said, but Golden State has shown that they have a weakness, and I know if anybody can do it, LeBron James can definitely exploit them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to start off by saying the Cleveland Cavaliers are the biggest underdogs in NBA Finals history. According to Vegas, their Golden State is minus 1,000. So if you put $100, you have to put up $1,000 to win 100 if you pick Golden State. So basically, Vegas thinks Golden State's going to run away with this, and
I'm betting LeBron James and the Cavs. Then come on, money.
Well, I don't, like Ryan said, I mean, you can't count LeBron out, but he barely it took him game 7 to beat the young Celtics team and that Pacers team. Golden State is a whole different monster, and I know Ryan just mentioned that the Golden State showed some weakness against the Rockets, but the Rockets, they're a really good team. I mean, they were the 1 seed for a reason, and if they had CP3, they could have been even tougher. So Golden State had to go through a little more difficult teams than LeBron did. Granted, LeBron has a god-awful team, and this could be by far the worst team LeBron has ever taken to the finals, or it could be the worst team anyone has ever taken to the finals. I think the 3 worst teams I've seen in the NBA Finals was this team, the 2007 Cavs that LeBron took, which had some garbage-ass guys. I believe his second best player was Larry Hughes. That was awful.
Yeah, that sounds
Anderson
about right.
Varejao, that Boobie Gibson, that team was awful. God-awful.
I still think that team's worse than this team. I really do.
And let's not forget about our hero, AI, took that 2001 team, which is another awful team. Yeah, they had Mutombo, but yeah, that's just Eric Snow, McKee, George Lynch.
Didn't they have Larry Hughes that year too?
No, we didn't have Larry Hughes. I think we traded him. But yeah, let's just be serious. Those are the 3 worst teams I've ever seen in the NBA Finals. They were led by legends, AI and LeBron. That's the only reason why those teams are there. But LeBron basically needs to be a superhuman again, which, I mean, I'm not going to doubt him at this point because he continues to be a superhuman. So he's probably going to average 30 plus, 10 rebounds, and like 15 assists if he's going to win. But Golden State, yeah, they have been playing poorly, but they're still Golden State. They have too many weapons. And if Iguodala comes in healthy, they have another guy who they could throw at LeBron for defense. Not saying any of these guys are going to stop LeBron, but all you got to do is make it tougher for him, make him work harder. And yeah, he played 48 minutes on Sunday, but he can't do that every game. He's going to pass out and die. I mean, unless Cleveland, one out of two things have to happen. The whole team plays great defense, or they shoot lights out. I don't know if either of those things are going to happen because the guys on their teams are not that great, and I don't have any kind of confidence in them. I mean, I think me and Ryan have been saying this every round in the playoffs that the teammates need to do something, but they don't really do anything. So I'm not even sure how they're advancing besides saying LeBron James. So I'm hoping Love comes back so they have somebody that could take off some pressure from LeBron. But at the end of the day, I think Golden State's going to end up being too much.
So what's your predictions then?
Golden State in 5.
Okay, I'm going to say in 6. I think LeBron will go to Cleveland, win back-to-back like he did against Boston.
I hope you're right, because at least that'll be somewhat of a decent series to watch. But I honestly, I don't know, because who's guarding Steph Curry? George Hill? He's going to get lit up. Who's going to guard Clay? JR? That's going to get lit up. So that's already... And if LeBron's doing everything on offense, is he going to try 100% on defense? Because he is the one who has perhaps to guard KD. So KD and LeBron are probably just going to cancel each other out. So I think Steph and Clay are just going to go off on him. And it's not like, I mean, yeah, Draymond, I'm not really too much worried about Draymond. He's going to do the other stuff. He's not going to score that much. But I'm just saying, I think it's going to be just bad matchups overall, in my opinion.
That's I agree with you. I agree with you. It's bad matchups. Don't get me wrong. I definitely agree. It's going to be LeBron covering KD and so forth. And I still think that, you know, he can, if anybody can get a team to come together and hopefully at least play defensively a great game, it's LeBron. And I think that's the one thing that he's going to focus on and push and get. Listen, guys, I did all this damn work to get us here. Do something and play some defense and at least get us 2 wins. At least 2 wins out of it, and I'll be happy. Me personally, I'm not saying LeBron said that part of it. I'll be happy that they get 2 wins out of it. I think it's something he can do, and it will be. Again, we're not saying Cavs win. If they do, my gosh, I'm going to be a millionaire because I'm still betting on that series, no matter what. Like I should have bet on my hot topic. We'll talk about in a minute, but I'll say 4-2, and just in my hopes that, you know, Love comes out, is able to play, and they actually play some great defense and can at least win in Cleveland.
So I'm gonna end by making one hot take. If by some miracle Cleveland wins this series, LeBron James is the greatest of all time. Sorry, Mike. If he beats this team, I don't know what to say at this point. I'm calling him the greatest of all time. That's all. I'm gonna leave it at that. If he does this, I don't know what more he could do.
You left me speechless on that. Well, all right, let's get into hot topics. So, for mine, we're going to talk about a team in the NHL and who was in the Stanley Cup. And like I said, I should have bet on at the beginning of the season. And I'm talking about the Vegas Golden Knights and the fact that they're in the Stanley Cup and they've just won Game 1 last night as well. In a great game. I was flipping back and forth between that and the Golden State game. They ended up winning 6-4. It was just back and forth. They scored first. This is an underdog team. They're pretty sure it was 1,000-1 on them as well to even make it to the Stanley Cup, let alone, or to win the Stanley Cup. And here we are. We are on an expansion team who is in the Stanley Cup, and looking to win it. Their first year in the league. This team has played great. Me and Matt, you know, we didn't want to see Washington or win or anybody really since the Flyers got kicked out, and we were rooting for the Vegas Knights from there on out. And they have been proving it, and they have been just demolishing and playing a great team game and just knocking teams off. They've only had, I think, pretty sure it's 3 losses if I remember correctly. Looking at it. In the entire playoffs, losing 1 in their last series to the Jets, and then losing 2 to the Sharks. So, you know, they come in, beat San Jose 6-4 in mind-blowing goals and just great game. And, you know, they said I should have been on this team in the very beginning, and Man, I could be paying off some student loans now, but I'm still putting that money down on the Cavs. Let's go Cleveland. But no, I mean Vegas has been putting it up, and these guys have been doing it really well, and I'm proud of them and congratulating them on a great season they've had and a great playoff run they've had, and let's continue it to a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, the Vegas Golden Knights, the official team of the Benchwarmers, because yeah, I mean I don't know what to say about this team. I mean, an expansion team winning, well, can't say they're winning, but if they do win this Stanley Cup, that would be ridiculous, because you don't hear about that anymore in today's day, because a lot of teams in other, I guess not even in other sports, in any of the 4 major sports in America, the expansion team takes a while to get good, but somehow this Vegas Golden Knight team, their first year, is in the Stanley Cup and is up 1-0 against the Washington Capitals. I'm almost speechless, because how I don't even know, because obviously the expansion draft is players from other teams that they just put together, and it's the first time these guys are playing together, and somehow they have the great chemistry and great unity to just play well right straight from the beginning. It's not like this team came together at the end of the season. We've been talking about these guys for a while now. I mean, they've been great all season long, and to see them succeed like this is ridiculous. So I'm hoping they continue this run, and 3 more wins and they're champs. So let's go Golden Knights. On to my hot topic for this week. Comes from European soccer. And as this month goes on, in the next month or so, me and Ryan will be discussing more soccer, as the World Cup will be coming our way. But as a little, I guess, appetizer, I'm going to discuss Champions League final that occurred on Saturday, where Real Madrid won their 3rd Champions League in the last 4 years. Basically call them a dynasty in Champions League. I mean, this Real Madrid is clearly one of the biggest powerhouses in world soccer. Obviously everybody knows Cristiano Ronaldo as their main guy, but in this game, Gareth Bale, who is a star on his own right, came off the bench to score 2 goals, and one of them might have been the nastiest goal I've ever seen, a scissor kick in the Champions League final. That's not something you see every day, let alone in a final. So this team, I mean, led by their coach Zinedine Zidane, who's another legend, a French legend. Got to give props to this team to continue succeeding at this high rate. A lot of rumors are saying that this might be the last season Ronaldo plays with this team. But if it is, at least he went out on top. And it's not like he ever faltered, because in his tenure with Madrid, they've always been atop every league they played in. So once again, as I mentioned, this is just an appetizer, because in the next few weeks we'll be discussing more soccer.
So congratulations to Real Madrid. It was a great game. That scissor kick, like you said, was just phenomenal. I mean, the placement on where he put that in the top left corner, I mean, it was just, there's no way the goalie could have gotten to it. But what really took Liverpool out of this game was that second goal that Bale to get up the third. Liverpool's goalie had it in his hands, and it just went by him, and that just took all momentum that Liverpool may have possibly had to at least tie the game up right out of it. It was a great game. I mean, Real Madrid did what they had to do, and like you said, they've been a phenomenal team, and they did what they had to do to go out there and win their 3rd championship in the last 4 years. And this team is definitely does something special, and they didn't need any help from the most well-known player on the team, but they had their stars who performed and did what they had to do to score their goals and put up the win for them. So congratulations to Real Madrid.
Yeah, and one last thing I forgot to mention, Liverpool, they lost one of their best players in the middle of this game, Mohamed Salah. He hurt his shoulder, and now there's reports that he might miss the World Cup. It's unfortunate because this guy was killing it. I mean, he's one of the best players in the world this year. Some are saying that he might win Player of the Year. It's between him and Ronaldo, basically. So it's sad to see this guy get hurt, especially in this late in the year in a championship game when your team needs you the most. So I'm hoping that he is healthy enough to play in the World Cup, because I don't think Egypt is going to do well without him. I mean, he's a monster, and I hope he has a speedy recovery. So it was unfortunate to see him get hurt.
Yeah, hopefully he does come back for the World Cup and all that. You don't want to see a guy go out like that, like he did in the game, and now he'll come back. So, my wishes to him and coming back healthy sooner.
Well, that's all we have for this week's episode of the Benchwarmers. Once again, you could follow us on Twitter at Benchwarmers06. You could subscribe on our podcasts on Google Play, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and YouTube. Thanks. See you guys next week.
The Benchwarmers.